Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. I finally wrapped my head around what I wanted to do with my top books of the year from this publisher. So to see what makes my best of 2020 list from Mad Cave Studios, you'll have to check it out after this.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, this to me, hands down, was the hardest publisher to figure out. And I think you all have noticed by now that I'm a pretty big homer for Mad Cave Studios, that I've talked to so many of their creators. I am pulling literally every single one of their books that have come out, and it's just something that I've fallen in love with, that I really think that of all of the publishers that I've read things from in the entirety of 2020, that Mad Cave Studios, hands down, is my favorite publisher of the year, from the diversity of stories, the diversity of art styles, that there's literally something for everyone, that you can take several different publishers and kind of put them into a different kind of archetype in having X, Y, or Z kinds of books. Mad Cave, I really don't feel like you can put into a singular box, because they've got horror stories, sci-fi stories, fantasy stories, superhero stories, and stories that don't even to begin to fall into some kind of, standard label, right? They've got biblical books in terms of looking at Knights of the Golden Sun. They've got books that change the representation landscape in terms of talking about, the visibility of people who are deaf in pantomime, or people across the queer identity spectrum in terminal punks. And it's that reason that I really love Mad Cave, and it was hard to kind of figure out which child that I loved the most. Now, there are a couple of series that I'm very high on that I've excluded because by the end of 2020 there were only 1 or 2 books out, like Terminal Punks, Pantomime, and I had it written down, but I threw that note away as I was cleaning my room up, so sorry. So there are several books that were early in their arc that I decided to purposely leave off the list, but there's 1 or 2 that were still in the mid to final game of their run that made me throw it on there. This so you can't see it. I've got my pile of my top 6. Coming in at number 6 from my 2020 Mad Cave series of the year is Hellfighter Quinn. Hellfighter Quinn is written by Jay Sandlin. I can't remember the other 2 artists' first names, but Adagon and Santakia, and Justin Birch is on letters. And I only have 1 physical issue. I've got to rectify that of buying the rest of them, but I have the rest digitally. But Hellfighter Quinn is a very interesting, superhero meets Mortal Kombat meets underdog story. In terms of, you have Hellfighter Quinn, who is from, the Bronx in Earth, and he is chosen to represent his realm in a tournament to take control of the Azure Sun. And the Azure Sun is not only a relic that is all-powerful, but it is something that gives your people from your homeland control. And you read the series and you can kind of tell that it's been a bit of a rigged game, because the Queen's clan has controlled the Azure Sun for quite some time. But in playing through this tournament, you start to figure out, does Hellfighter Quinn have a chance? Does the Queen know the right way to exert political pressure to convert people to her clan? And you see all kinds of, different relationship dynamics play their way out. You see different, sweet battle scenes play their way out. So if you want, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, the fantasy story, the comic book, then Hellfighter Quinn should be something that you definitely check out. That Jay Sandlin is one hell of a writer, and it's not the only time you're going to hear me talk about him in this top list. Coming in at number 5 is Dryfoot, and I still don't have a regular copy of Dryfoot number 1, but that's on me. So Dryfoot is by Jared Lahan. The art is by Orlando Casado. And the lettering is done by Justin Birch. So, Dryfoot, and you're looking at a sweet remark by Kevin Bedina, or at Karate Kevin of the Superpower Review, on an advanced reader copy. But Dryfoot follows the story of a couple of best friends in Little Havana who are trying to make their way out, right? That they are not interested in the life of crime, the sort of traditional culture, right? They are wanting to get out of Little Havana and find their way home. So they decide to essentially put on a heist against the local drug kingpin to steal enough money and resources from him so they can flee. But in such a tight-knit, small community of Little Havana, it's hard to get by with these secrets. It's hard to get by without fear of the actions of these kids blowing back on their families. So we see, some teenage coming-of-age tales with some very sweet 80s references, but we also see definitions played with a family not just by blood, but also by bond and friendship. And this book right here, Dryfoot number 3, is the book that made all of the internet angry at Jared Lahan because he did something that hurt. In the way that the story gets put together, that shit hurted. I'm still scarred. My heart still hurts, Jared. I don't know if I'm mad at you anymore because I really feel like you redeemed yourself in the storytelling of number 4. But this was a great series from 2 talent search winners in terms of kind of telling the story of, teens trying to break away from some of the stereotypes that we have of, Hispanic individuals in Florida in the 80s. It was a fresh, new, hot take. It was very interesting. And if you want to find out what kind of stuff Jared's got coming next, then you should check out his newsletter. I'll throw a link up here. But he's working on Mexicans with Swords for a Kickstarter project. But very good book. I really hope that Mad Cave gives Jared the opportunity to take on a second title, because I think Dryfoot was quite excellent. And I want to see what else he can do when he's given room for his creative wings to grow. Coming in at number 4 is Over the Ropes. I told you this wasn't the first time, or that wasn't the only time that you would hear Jay Sandlin's name mentioned. But Over the Ropes is written by, and I gotta look at the third book because I still have my Midtown stickers on the back issues I had to pick up. But it's Sandlin, Costantino, Segala, and again, Justin Birch. I like wrestling a lot. I really like the kayfabe of it. I like the manly adults, soap operas. But I like the storylines that come out, right? The overly dramatic, over-the-top insanity. And that is what is happening in Over the Ropes, that you have a lifetime jobber in the Phoenix who decides that he's going to go against the company line and sees his opportunity, sees his title, and he will rise, right? That he's going to deal with all of these challenges to be the new face of the company. And you get to see all of the different dynamics of, behind the scenes, nitty gritty 1980s pro wrestling. And when I interviewed Jay, it feels like 37 years ago. I want to say it was in August. I don't remember what time is anymore, y'all. But this is written as a book that is literally by wrestling fans for wrestling fans, because Jay is dropping references to things that are happening throughout the 80s and 90s in the growth of the WWE or WWF and WCW. There's feelings of, new Georgia Pro Wrestling in the Southern Fried Wrestling that happens in this series, but it's just a good kind of showdown between good and evil in the auspices of a wrestling ring. And this is the second book from Jay that's on the list that I really enjoy because it felt different, but it also hit those nostalgic, like, watching 80s and 90s wrestling with my grandpa, that kind of hit home with me. And that's a reason why I really appreciate that story, right? It has that sense of connection, that sense of home, that sense of belonging, that really made that story resonate with me. And I'm really excited to see the next book that Sandlin has coming out through Mad Cave is through their new young adult novels imprint, and it's about soccer. I'm a soccer fan. I gotta find the right place to point, right? Sporting Kansas City for life. Big fan of Aston Villa. Villa until I die. So I want to see what happens in that book. Coming in at number 3, and 3, 2, and 1 might all be a virtual tie. That 3, 2, and 1 were very, very hard to slog through. But I finally settled on my decision after rereading each of these, which is something I tried not to do in anything else, right? Was to go off of my base gut memory, my, gut instinct, my memory from first or second reads of this initially. But as I stared at, the books coming in third, second, and book of the year, I had to let it marinate. I had to give them all a second fair shot, and let them see which stuck. So coming in at number 3 is Stargazer. And Stargazer's not quite done, but I think there's one book left. It's Anthony Cleveland is the author, Fuso and Simeone on the art, and again, Justin Birch, who is the Mad Cave Letterer of the Year. I'll make that declaration right now. So, ta-da! I'll see if I can throw in some animated confetti for Justin Birch being the Mad Cave Letterer of the Year. But this is Cleveland's second title at Mad Cave, I think. That Show's End was his first. But it's about alien abduction. It's about a connection to family. It's a long bond between his sister and a brother who just kind of seems strange to the rest of the world, but he really is the glue that brings the rest of the crew together. And you're dealing with aliens, right? The question of is there something else out there in the world? Is there some broader intelligence that may be watching, threatening, or manipulating the goings-on here of planet Earth? And this story, like, Anthony Cleveland is ridiculously talented in writing, y'all, because I cannot predict where he's going from issue to issue to issue, but it all makes sense, it all connects, and it's all so damn good. So I think there are 2 more issues left of Stargazer to come out in 2021, but this series is phenomenal. So what takes down phenomenal? I don't know. I'll find a book that means better than, or a word that means better than phenomenal to describe the next 2. Coming in at number 2 is the genre of comic, or I don't know genre, but like the story setting of comic books that I don't feel like's used enough anymore. That I love old school westerns. I love spaghetti westerns. That, again, those have that kind of techie nostalgia for me. And that's what really made book number 2 cement itself in place. My second best series or book of the year from Mad Cave Studios is Savage Bastards. Savage Bastards is by David Galliano. The artist is Carlos Angeli, and the letterer is Miguel Angel Zapata. This series is about a dude who's just really bad, has a bunch of kids, and attempts to run a bunch of towns or provinces around him all over the Wild West through the use of his progeny, right? Like it's a Wild Wild West mafia in a way. But early on, you learn about our main 2 characters, which are 2 of the bastards that don't know that A, they should be part of this like organization, and B, that they're related. So it becomes a question about a quickly formed brotherhood and how 2 people from very different worlds, or some of these, other family members who may be estranged and not part of the gang, a priest, all kinds of people who are fighting for good for different reasons kind of come together to take down the crazier half of the family, right? That this is a classic battle of good versus evil, but there are also elements to this story of feeling like you are owed something if your siblings are treated a lot better than you are, that there's this feeling of like you want to get yours as well. And what really makes this stick out and really makes me hope that there's a second arc somewhere down the line is I did not see this ending coming. That, David, you got me. That I will, keep reading issue number 5 over and over again and keep going, how did I not see this coming? But you surprised the shit out of me, and it's just really good. That this is a good Western comic, gang comic, family comic, that it touches on so many cool individual themes. The art in here just feels like every element from Westerns that we've loved throughout history, and it should be read by everybody. Mandatory reading. All of you literature teachers in the world should teach this book. So it's no surprise that my book of the year for Mad Cave Studios in 2020 is Villainous. And I'll apologize now. I just need to start making sticky notes on the back of books to get the full name of the artist and the colorist. Because I know I do that when I blog, but I really suck at remembering names in my videos. So for that, Stoney, you can scream at me now for not giving everybody else equal singing of the praise, but this book was just real good. So, Villainous is by Stoney Williams, Stoney Williams, Sidzinski, LaFuente, and then Justin Birch again. The reason why I put Villainous at the top of the list is if there is an area of comics that I feel like are really hard to write well, it's superhero books. And it's not because there's a high degree of technical proficiency that's needed for superhero books, but like that is the most overcrowded part of the market, right? That we talk about all of the superhero stories that have existed forever from Marvel and DC. We talk about the superhero stories that pop in and out from different independent publishers, and it's really hard to write a good, compelling superhero story well. It's also probably quite challenging to do that when this is your first comic book release. And that's the story of what Stoney's got going on in Villainous. That this is his first major market release, y'all. That he's done prose short stories. He's got some pages that he's colored coming out in Cthulhu Invades Oz. But this was his first major market release of a comic book. This just speaks to the level of talent that I think Stoney Williams naturally has, let alone where I think this guy's ceiling is going to be. But Villainous number 1 introduces us into kind of competing, organizations. That you have the team of good folks and you have the League of Shadows. And it introduces you to Tilly, who I'm waiting on my sweet Tilly shirt to come in the mail that I ordered last weekend. But I'm going to be rocking that shit soon. Tilly, who is a sidekick for the good team. That she's, this weird lizard girl who's had her sense of duty and order and right and wrong ingrained into her for all of her life. And then all of a sudden, as she starts to figure out that things may not be going well, she has something framed upon her. And in the remaining issues of Villainous, it's a 5-issue story. Number 4 comes out soon, but I've read it and it's real good. You see this kind of battle between good and evil, right? Is the good team justified in using their powers to potentially change the world order by assassinating world leaders to create courses of change, right? In the same way that America meddles in other people's political affairs, or should they be stopped at all instances? That just the level of character development that I've seen in the 3 physical issues, or number 4 digitally, is mind-blowing. And I really, really think that Villainous could be one of those stories where we could see several arcs, right? Not just a 5-issue thing from Mad Cave, that we could see offshoots that dive into all of these individual characters in the same way that you see series, from the big two that have focused on the same characters forever. That I think what Stoney's got going on in this book is just fresh and innovative in the storytelling arc. The art in this book is breathtaking. The covers, amazing. Some of the things that Birch does on letters kind of changes the way that we expect to see narrations play their way out in these kinds of books into the future. And it's just the perfect storm of everything that I look for in the typical kind of comic book that I want to read, right? Compelling characters, relatable story, killer art, and a letterer who absolutely crushes it. And I think you see all of that together. And seeing everything that came out from Mad Cave Studios in 2020, I've started reading some of the books that are to be released coming into 2021, y'all. Mad Cave is poised to just dominate everything. That the way that they put creative teams together, the way that they guide new creators versus giving, second, third, fourth, fifth book creators kind of the freedom to do what they want. Like, they're absolutely crushing it now. And I really think that if you're not hopping on Mad Cave books, there is literally something wrong with you. But, Justin Birch, my Mad Cave Studios letterer of the year, probably one of my favorite letterers, although I just, I still want to fight him. Dustin versus Justin is a battle of the ages. But Mad Cave you can't put in any kind of particular box where you can with most other publishers. The level of just talent discovery that they have is mind-blowing. And I'm very excited to finally get this off my chest, be told how wrong I am by the rest of the internet. But Mad Cave is just the publisher that I've absolutely fallen in love with from COVID on. If it wasn't for some of the things that they did to get themselves out into the market, I don't know if I would have stumbled onto them, but I don't know if I can quit them. That everything from Mad Cave is good. You should read everything from Mad Cave. And with that, I'm going to quit because I'm getting rambly and circular. But let me know what you think about these picks of the year. And as always, thanks for stopping by. And have a good one.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.